AFCON teams are set, guys. Welcome back to the Africans. We do primarily Canadian African content because we wouldn't be the Africans, so we didn't do either. So, as usual, if you like this type of content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Right now, I think we're 20 away from 1,000, which is a big accomplishment for us. So please hit that subscribe. If you like it, turn on your notifications, give us a like, comment, do whatever you need to do. But we appreciate you guys being here. But as you know here, the AFCON teams are set. We know who is going to the dance in Morocco, which is happening in December of 2025. They're going to play it in the December window, which changes things up a little bit from a scheduling standpoint. It'll feel like that 2022 World Cup with teams getting ready for that in that window. So I'm curious to see how this will change it. Normally they play in that January to February space, which a lot of clubs are always angry about. And so Morocco hosting, it's going to be great to see. But let's talk about the teams that are there. We have Morocco, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Algeria, DR Congo, Senegal, Egypt, Angola, Equatorial Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire, Gabon, Uganda, South Africa, Tunisia, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mali, Comoros, Sudan, Benin, Tanzania, Botswana, and Mozambique. And I think it's fair to talk about what happened because you notice those names. You'll notice, hey, there are some teams that weren't mentioned. I think every group, for the most part, has a team that you say, what could have been? We're just going to go over that real quick here. I think in Group A, the team that what could have been was clearly Gambia. Gambia, 2 wins, 2 draws, and a loss. That draw versus Madagascar let them in a position where there was no reason that game should have been a draw, especially when we look at Gambia finishing with just 8 points, 2 away. You add 2 points to that amount, you're drawn with now Tunisia. And maybe you still don't make it through because of goal difference, but you are in a better spot. Maybe you make it through even. But Gambia has to look at themselves and say, hey, that game, we dropped the ball there. So no Scorpions at the dance for AFCON in 2025. Group B was over when it started. Morocco ran through this group like a hot knife through butter. 26 goals for 2 goals against. Brahim Diaz, I mean, that man is showing some quality here. It'll be interesting to see how they're able now to put it together as the host in the tournament. Gabon, though, playing well, looking good. Or the next best team, Lesotho and Central African Republic, didn't give much in terms of opportunities. When you look at Group C, Egypt made their way through 2 draws, 4 wins. Botswana, 2 draws, 2 wins, 2 losses. Mauritania, and surprisingly, Cape Verde. Cape Verde, who had qualified for 2 of their last AFCONs, unable to make it through with 4 losses. I think a lot of people looked into this group and said, okay, Egypt, Cape Verde. But those 4 losses just mounted. And they just weren't able to go. I felt that after last AFCON, I felt that was maybe their last window. And they had a great showing, if not for running to South Africa in the round of 16, I believe it would have been. So with that being the case, Cape Verde, definitely the disappointment in terms of what could have been looking at them. Group D was a weird group. That's the group where you have Libya versus Nigeria, that they get sent to an airport. CAF rules in favor of Nigeria, gives them a 3-0 victory. And now you get to the end. Rwanda wins their last game against Nigeria 2-1, but not enough to make it through. Tied to head-to-head points, goal difference. That's the difference. Goals for versus goals against. Benin with 2 more goals. And Rwanda not going. And if you're Rwanda, you're looking at those games, those 2 draws, but specifically those losses, right? Rwanda played the first drew against Nigeria 2-0. That was fine. The Benin result was there, but losing to Libya, there was no reason for that. You flip that to a win there in Morocco this December, not Benin. And that's where they sit. And that's the unfortunate reality of it. Group E, Algeria. I think Algeria has looked really good in terms of that. Not as prolific as, say, as Morocco, but I think Algeria has looked solid in getting the results. 5 wins, 1 draw. Equatorial Guinea, the team had controversy with it just because, players being eligible or not. Those players weren't with the team, but I think Equatorial Guinea continued to build. Togo, I was hoping to get a little bit more from them, but 1 win moving forward is not going to cut it. but 2 draws, you look at any of those 2 draws that they had for Togo, whether it was the draw versus the draw versus Equatorial Guinea, or maybe it was their draw versus Liberia. That hurts. They should be a better side than Liberia. Maybe you flip that away, and then you're moving forward. Flipped to a win, they're definitely tied with Equatorial Guinea, and they're moving on. That is on them next time. But I think Togo still building, Liberia going through Group F. I know all the headlines were Ghana, and Ghana were poor. Ghanaian descent here. They were poor, but they still had opportunities to make it through. They just were wasteful and were poor, and lots of questions come through them. But Niger was close, but not close enough. Sudan, -2. Niger is looking at their games, and you're saying, where could they have got that? Niger drew Ghana, but in that game, they just were able to build into that game, and then were able to get the draw, and then they get the win versus Ghana in Ghana. So maybe you're saying if you flip that game, they're in a better position. But that game, Ghana had opportunities, just weren't able to capitalize on them. Ghana being the biggest disappointment. We understand. They'll deal with that, or if they won't. It's what the Black Stars do. But Angola and Sudan making it through, congratulations to those 2 teams. Not looking necessarily dominant, especially with Sudan making it through, but hey, they don't ask you how you get results. They just say the results. So good for them. Then you have Group G, Zambia and Ivory Coast. 4 wins for each team, 1 draw and a loss for both teams respectfully. There wasn't really much conversation in terms of what could have happened with those groups. Sierra Leone, maybe if they flipped one of those draws, but again, a draw versus Chad, about their level, and then another draw versus Chad, about their level. If they flip one of those, maybe they're close, sir. But honestly, with 12 and 13 points, they didn't have too much of a chance moving. No Guinea at this World Cup. Apologies. No Guinea at this AFCON. DR Congo and Tanzania making it through. Guinea with 9 points, 3 wins, 3 losses. They couldn't pull a draw anywhere. I mean, you look at Guinea's games, right? You have your 1-0 versus DR Congo. You have a loss versus Tanzania. Then you have the win versus Ethiopia, which is fine. But then win, and then loss. Those 1-0 losses to DR Congo or Tanzania, if they could have flipped one of them to just a draw, they're cooking with grease. They have the goal. They have the goal differential. They could have done it, which means probably the best 9 in Africa right now is not going to be at the biggest African tournament of the summer/winter of the year? Question mark? That's where it sits. Group I, that game was very much set in stone. Mali, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau really weren't close from it. So that group stays how it was. Group J, Cameroon and Zimbabwe. You look and say maybe if Kenya could have done something, but Kenya was just draws and draws. Maybe they could have flipped one game there, but unfortunately, no. Group K was South Africa and Uganda. Congo was thank you for coming. South Sudan, thank you for coming as well. And then Senegal, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Malawi. Those are your groups. That's how it runs, and they are there. So you have your 24 teams there. I know there's always going to be fun conversation in terms of who do we like. They have a year's worth now to go through. Africa goes now into World Cup qualifiers during their windows, but then also getting teams ready for the tournament. So there's a little bit of a shift of focus from one thing to the other as the year goes. Form is going to be important as usual. They don't see them back on the pitch until March. So I'm curious to see how these teams now approach this, knowing that the tournament isn't, say, at the beginning of this year, coming year, but at the end of next year. Guys, let me know who are your favorites right now. Way too early predictions. Maybe we'll do a little bit live and talk about it later. But guys, thank you again for being here. And until next time, I'm going to stop talking right here.